Chapter 33. Barit took over the wood in a daze and started sharpening it seriously. Barit was very excited. He knew he was receiving the deity's punishment, but he just could not control the waves in his heart. Elvis was the one who brought Gu Mengmeng back to Saint Nazaire, while Leah was the one who saved Gu Mengmeng from Quentin. But Gu Mengmeng handed the tree branch to him in front of the two of them. Did this prove that among the three of them, Gu Mengmeng liked him the most? After all, females would only give the males they liked the chance to do things for them. Elvis, who had the same thought as Barit, had an even darker expression. He stuck close to Barit when he could not find him, but once he found Barit, he immediately left him behind. However, the main culprit, Gu Mengmeng, completely did not know that Elvis and Barit's imagination had gone to the ends of the earth. She was only trying her best to figure out how to place the thicker wooden stick so that it would be stable. Leader. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Elvis softly and passed the thicker wooden stick to him. Can you help me split it from the middle? Elvis's expression became much better. See, Gu Mengmeng passed the thicker one to him. This meant that he was more reliable than Barit. Thus, Elvis took over the wooden stick from Gu Mengmeng with its under a face. He used a little force with his fingers and split the wooden stick from the middle with a cracking sound. Gu Mengmeng immediately clapped her hands and cheered, "Leader, you're so capable, you're really amazing, this is exactly what I wanted." In reality, Gu Mengmeng's flattery was too exaggerated, but the males in the beast world all fell for it. The gazes of the males below the platform of the deity's punishment started to wander around, looking for a thicker and bigger wooden stick than the one Elvis split just now, planning to perform for Gu Mengmeng. The pitiful ones did not know that Gu Mengmeng did not even have the mood to look at them, because she only wanted to eat now. Gu Mengmeng laid the wooden stick that Elvis split flat, then waited eagerly for Barit to sharpen the sharpened one. Gu Mengmeng's gaze seemed to have some kind of magic, causing all the males, including Elvis, to follow her gaze and lock their gazes on Barit at the same time, causing Barit to be extremely nervous. Sharpening the wooden stick under the gaze of the entire tribe was actually so stressful. What about me? What should I do? The neglected Mr. Holy took the initiative to lower himself and kneeled on the ground with one knee. He hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin lightly with one hand and turned her little face towards him. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with a graceful and elegant smile. His long and narrow eyes looked like they could seduce one's soul. How could he be so charming? Gu Mengmeng was a little dazed by that pair of eyes. She was so dazed that she could not say a word. She just opened her mouth slightly and stared at Mr. Holy in a daze. Elvis secretly clenched his fists when he saw this scene. Because Gu Mengmeng's current appearance was exactly the same as when she first met him by the lake. She liked Leah. This was the conclusion Elvis came to. By right, he should be happy, but the burning sensation in his chest told him that he was not as magnanimous as he thought he was. He was selfish and wanted to have Gu Mengmeng for himself and not share her with anyone else. Even if it was Leah, he wasn't willing. The beast pressure that was released unintentionally made all the males under the platform of the deity's punishment feel a strong pressure. The weaker ones almost fainted. Meanwhile, Leah and Barit, who were supporting him, felt it more vividly. Aside from the topic. Chapter 34. Leah maintained the posture of kneeling on one knee and hooking Gu Mengmeng's chin. He just tilted his head slightly to look at Elvis. His smile was still calm and composed. Elvis? Elvis only regained his senses after being called by Leah. He retracted his beast pressure and shifted his gaze to the side, not wanting to see that unbearable scene. Gu Mengmeng also regained her senses because of this small change. She despised her fangirl behavior in front of everyone, but she could not help it. This man Holy's looks were really too much. If Elvis was like the god of war who made thousands of armies avoid him, then this man Holy was like a 1,000-year fox demon who had an attraction that made people unable to shift their eyes away. From afar, he was like a flower on a high mountain that could not be defiled, but when one looked closer, he had an irresistible attraction, like a whirlpool, firmly attracting everyone's gaze. Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly and passed the wooden stick that Elvis had just broken to man Holy. Beauty, can I trouble you to help me carve a small hole here? Just this deep will do. Leah nodded and released Gu Mengmeng's chin. He stretched out his slender and fair fingers, the fingernail of his index finger growing to a length of 5 centimeters at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, he poked the wooden stick lightly and a small hole of the same depth as Gu Mengmeng's description was done. Gu Mengmeng's expression was a little dazed. What the heck, there was such a thing? Please forgive her for not being able to accept the fact that all the handsome guys around her were demons. Meng, is this all right? Barit, who was at the side, finally finished carving the wooden stick. He passed it to Gu Mengmeng, forcefully interrupting Gu Mengmeng's infatuated gaze at Leah. Oh, it's all right. Gu Mengmeng felt that it was too embarrassing for her to lose her composure again, so she took over the wooden stick that Barit had carved and started to focus on drilling the wood to start the fire, refusing to look up at Man Holy again. However, even though more than 80% of the people in the tribe were looking at Gu Mengmeng at the platform of the deity's punishment, no one knew what she was doing. But, was that important? Not at all. No matter what the females do, the males just have to support them. Hence, a group of onlookers who did not know what was going on watched with relish as Gu Mengmeng rubbed that wooden stick with all her might until sweat formed on her forehead, but not even a single smoke was produced. Until Gu Mengmeng no longer had any energy left. Her arms were so sore that she could not even lift them up. She hung by the side weakly, staring at the 2 wooden blocks in a daze with a conflicted face. Elvis then asked, "Is the ceremony over? Can you eat now?" Gu Mengmeng looked up, her big eyes watering. "Leader, please protect me." Elvis's heart palpitated under Gu Mengmeng's gaze. Her pitiful look really made one's imagination run wild, and he had an urge to tear her apart and eat her up. Gu Mengmeng moved closer to Elvis while whining and pushed the 2 pieces of wood towards Elvis, saying, "Leader, help me drill, I don't have any energy left." Although Elvis did not understand why she had to use a piece of wood to drill another piece of wood, since it was Gu Mengmeng's request, he naturally would not reject her. Hence, Elvis squatted down and imitated Gu Mengmeng's actions just now, starting to rub the sharp end of the thinner wooden stick into the groove of the thicker wooden stick with force. Not long after, a cloud of green smoke rose. Chapter 35. Elvis looked at the wisp of green smoke and his hands paused for a moment. Although the smell was faint, he seemed to have smelled the scent of the flame devil. "Hey, don't stop." Gu Mengmeng finally saw a ray of hope, but when Elvis stopped, the smoke was blown away by the breeze. Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng's anxious look, and although he was hesitant, he still continued to rub the smoke. Indeed, after a while, a small flame started to burn. Gu Mengmeng was overjoyed and she smiled till her teeth could not be seen. She hurriedly grabbed a bunch of dried leaves and piled them beside the small flame so that the fire could burn more vigorously. Just when victory was about to come, Gu Mengmeng felt the weight on her waist lighten and she was lifted up by Elvis, jumping off the platform of the deity's punishment in a few moves. She stared at the small flame with her brows knitted tightly and her face was full of wariness. Not only Elvis, even the surrounding males looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy, and the atmosphere instantly became very tense. What's wrong?" Gu Mengmeng asked blankly. "The flame devil is very dangerous and will often swallow the whole tribe." Elvis's expression was very solemn, like a general who was ready to enter the battlefield anytime. "Flame devil?" Gu Mengmeng repeated Elvis's words in confusion as she looked around with her big eyes blinking, searching for the big demon that looked like it would swallow the whole tribe anytime. Elvis used his hand to knock Gu Mengmeng's little head and then used his chin to point at the burning leaves on the platform of the deity's punishment. Gu Mengmeng pointed at the small flame that could be extinguished anytime doubtfully and asked, "The flame devil you are talking about, is it that one?" "Yeah." Elvis nodded his head cautiously. Gu Mengmeng looked at them for a long time until she realized that even Barit and Quentin, who were kneeling on the platform of the deity's punishment, had a face as if they were ready to die for a just cause. Only then did she confirm that Elvis was not joking. Damn it, the generation gap between the eras was indeed as wide as the Pacific Ocean. Gu Mengmeng squirmed and wanted to jump down from Elvis's arms. But Elvis firmly believed that the flame devil was an extremely dangerous thing, so he refused to loosen his grip no matter what. The more Gu Mengmeng squirmed and struggled, the tighter Elvis restrained her. Gu Mengmeng's struggles were useless, and seeing that the small flame that she had painstakingly lit was about to be extinguished, she could only use both of her hands to hold Elvis's face and force his gaze from the small flame to her. Of the flame. She tried to have trust and said with the most determined expression, "That is not the flame devil, it is fire." Fire? Elvis's brows were still tightly furrowed. He really wanted to believe Gu Mengmeng's words, but he had witnessed the flame devil devouring a beast city with his own eyes. In just one night, that beast city with 100 years of history turned into ashes. Those orcs who were lucky enough to escape the calamity were all filled with fear, and they would never forget that sky full of red light and cruel scorching heat. Gu Mengmeng was so hungry. If the fire was extinguished, when would she be able to eat roasted rabbit meat? Flame devil, platform of the deity's punishment, beast deity. Chapter 36. Sure enough, superstition had to be cured by superstition. Gu Mengmeng was especially thankful that she had directly or indirectly come into contact with numerous scams that used religion to deceive people, so it was a piece of cake for her to bluff these ancient people who had never seen the market. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances. Elvis had already told Leah about the possibility of Gu Mengmeng being the messenger of the beast deity, so Gu Mengmeng's words had undoubtedly confirmed Gu Mengmeng's identity as the messenger of the beast deity. It was a pity that Gu Mengmeng herself did not know that her words had unknowingly raised her image to an unreachable level. In the near future, the beast world would be in an uproar. The current Gu Mengmeng was only thinking about that fresh piece of rabbit meat waiting to be cooked. Since he had confirmed Gu Mengmeng's identity as the messenger of the beast deity, Elvis naturally would not doubt her words. Although he was still in awe of the flame devil, but since Gu Mengmeng had said so, he would risk his life to try. So, he placed Gu Mengmeng on the ground and tried to approach the fire carefully. Gu Mengmeng felt aggrieved as she watched Elvis, that devil, advancing in a village-like manner. She sighed and simply walked around Elvis, taking big strides towards the direction of the fire. Orcs had excellent hearing. Even if some of them were not as good as Elvis, they were not far off. So, most of them heard what Gu Mengmeng said just now. It was just that they did not know Gu Mengmeng's identity as the messenger of the beast deity, so they were in a wait-and-see state. After all, when did a female care about the tribe when she was willful? But when Gu Mengmeng walked towards the fire personally without fear, it brought a huge shock to the watching males. Elvis and Leah, who were left behind by Gu Mengmeng, felt especially strongly. That petite back view facing the fire, even though it was so weak that it could not even be grasped, it seemed to contain infinite power, making people want to follow her footsteps, trust her and support her. And Barit and Quentin, who were originally kneeling beside the fire, felt as if they were struck by lightning. Even Quentin felt an indescribable reverence towards Gu Mengmeng, as if she had some kind of secret on her and going against her was simply courting death. Perhaps, Lee's timely appearance was not an accident, it was really fated. The beast deity especially favored this female. Quentin secretly decided that if he could survive the deity's punishment this time, he would definitely keep a close eye on Nina in the future and not let Nina provoke this little female. Gu Mengmeng did not care about the turbulent waves in their hearts. She skipped to the side of the fire happily and grabbed a handful of dried leaves to pile in to prevent the fire from extinguishing. She then passed the remaining wood to Barit, who was still kneeling at the same spot and was the closest to her. "Come, help me, break these into smaller pieces." Barit took the wood in a daze and gripped it hard with both hands. The wood broke into pieces. Gu Mengmeng's eyes sparkled with little stars of worship. She stuck out 2 thumbs and praised him exaggeratedly, "You're indeed a tough guy." So handsome, generous praise for males did not exist in the beast world. So no matter how many times Gu Mengmeng praised him in an exaggerated and slightly joking manner, it would make the blood of the males boil. So did Barit, Elvis, and Leah. Out of topic, why aren't you leaving a message? Is there no more love? Chapter 37. Elvis walked to Gu Mengmeng's side and sat cross-legged. Yes, he was afraid of the flame devil. But Gu Mengmeng was already sitting so close to him. He was the tribe leader, the #1 warrior of Saint Nazir, yet he was sitting so far away from Gu Mengmeng, a little female. Moreover, Barit had been kneeling at the same spot without moving at all. How could he let Gu Mengmeng think that Barit was braver than Elvis? Although Elvis did not really understand what tough guy meant, it would not be wrong to praise him. Gu Mengmeng's admiring gaze should only belong to him. With that thought, Elvis retracted his iron arm and pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms domineeringly. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng was about to struggle, he raised his eyebrows and said, "Follower, aren't we supposed to stick close to each other?" "Fine, you are handsome, you are right." Gu Mengmeng looked at the rabbit meat on the ground sullenly, then looked at Elvis, who was hugging her stubbornly and did not want to let go. She decided to use a roundabout way to save herself. "Leader, you must be hungry too, right? I'll go and process that rabbit meat and roast it for you to have a sumptuous meal, how about that?" Roast? Elvis felt that Gu Mengmeng was filled with mysteries. She was like a treasure house full of secrets. Her every action was puzzling and fascinating. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. Damn, she was stupid. In this world where the fire was called the flame devil, how could she expect these fellows who ate raw meat and drank blood to know how to cook and what was frying, roasting, cooking, and deep frying? Gu Mengmeng, you are a brave and quick-witted child, you can do it. After Gu Mengmeng cheered herself on in her heart, she put on a flattering smile and squinted her eyes, saying, "I just have to process that piece of meat and make it more delicious." Elvis was not moved. Wasn't rabbit meat just rabbit meat? What, delicious or not, leader, as your follower, I have the responsibility to let you live a better life. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head seriously and was deeply touched by herself. She was really a competent follower. Elvis casually picked up the piece of meat and tossed it into the crowd. The eager males displayed their masculine strength, just like a rugby team fighting in the Olympics. After pushing left and right, a muscular male managed to snatch that bloody and dirty rabbit meat. Then, like a world champion holding on to his trophy, he walked to Gu Mengmeng solemnly, looking at her expectantly. "What should we do? Tell me and let Colin do it." Elvis's gaze never left Gu Mengmeng's face. Gu Mengmeng truly felt that the treatment of being surrounded by the stars was not something an ordinary person could enjoy. It was so damn awkward when hundreds of handsome men with different styles but all of them had strong physiques and flawless looks treated it as an honor to be ordered around by you. Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly at Colin and said, "Can I trouble you to bring this piece of rabbit meat to the stream and use water to wash the blood on it and the organs inside clean?" "Of course." Gu Mengmeng's politeness made Colin blush. There had never been a female who spoke to him so gently before. Not to mention washing a piece of meat, even if Gu Mengmeng asked him to pluck off all the hair on his body, he would not say no. "Thank you." Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and smiled sweetly. "No, you're welcome." Colin's face turned even redder. He held on to the rabbit with one hand and scratched the back of his head with the other, taking small steps backwards. Thump. Chapter 38. Colin handled the rabbit meat very quickly and came back with a piece of meat that had been washed clean not long after. Gu Mengmeng received the rabbit meat happily and asked Colin to find a thinner branch to sharpen one end of it. Then, she skewered the rabbit meat on the branch and tilted her head to look at Elvis. She used a fawning and docile tone to discuss, "Leader, can I sit a little to the side? I can't display my abilities if you hug me like this." Elvis liked the feeling of Gu Mengmeng nestling in his arms. It was as if she was a part of his body and he was only complete when he hugged her in his arms. But, he could not bear to disappoint her. So, he nodded his head and allowed her to leave his arms. It was just a distance of less than half a meter, but he felt that it was a little far. Gu Mengmeng was so hungry that she was seeing stars. No matter how many handsome men there were, they were not as good-looking as the rabbit meat in her hands. "Roasted rabbit meat, my favorite, la 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 la," Gu Mengmeng hummed a little tune while turning the rabbit meat in her hands. Unbeknownst to her, she had shocked all the males in Saint Nazaire once again with her contentment. Gu Mengmeng knew how to sing. The legendary ability that only females from the mermaid tribe knew, Gu Mengmeng actually knew it. Gu Mengmeng turned around unintentionally and saw Barit looking at her in shock and astonishment. So, she used her elbow to nudge Barit's arm and asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Barit suddenly regained his senses and lowered his head with his brows tightly furrowed. For the first time, the proud warrior of Saint Nazir, Barit, avoided the gaze of the female he liked. He started to doubt, was he really outstanding enough? Was he really worthy to be Gu Mengmeng's pursuer? What's wrong? Gu Mengmeng was even more astonished. Barit had always been a straightforward person, never hiding or being coy. Although his liking was a little sudden and baffling, humans were just that weird. When someone told you that he liked you for 100 times, that person would become a little special to you. Even if you did not accept him or did not even give him any response, but if he suddenly stopped appearing, you would still feel a little uncomfortable. This was Gu Mengmeng's current state. This Barit had always wanted to have his eyes on Gu Mengmeng. Now that she had taken the initiative to approach him, why was he avoiding her? Barit pursed his lips and looked at the nimble twigs in Gu Mengmeng's hands. He did not answer his question and asked, "You're not afraid of the flame, fire?" Gu Mengmeng grinned and replied, "As long as it's used properly, fire will not turn into a flame devil." "Look, isn't it helping me roast the rabbit meat?" Barit nodded his head ambiguously and did not reveal more of his thoughts. In the instant that the flame was ignited, he was determined to die. It did not matter even if he was swallowed by the flame demon. He must not get up and escape. He must not let the anger of the beast deity implicate Gu Mengmeng. But such determination seemed pathetic in front of Gu Mengmeng's relaxed attitude. He wanted to become an even more outstanding male, a male that could match up to Gu Mengmeng. But now, he didn't even know if he could survive the divine punishment. Chapter 39. Barit looked into Gu Mengmeng's eyes, his resolute face filled with determination. "I want to protect you." Thump, Gu Mengmeng's maiden heart was violently teased by Barit's not gentle words. How could she forget? Mr. Holy had said before, if one avoided the deity's punishment, the beast deity's anger would affect the female of the punished. Even though she and Barit did not know anything other than each other's names, this fellow still insisted on seeing her as his partner and was willing to risk his life for her. The touching feeling was not because he was not afraid of anything, but because he was clearly afraid, but to protect you, he did not retreat. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips curled upwards unknowingly. Barit was indeed a tough guy, he was so handsome. While they were chatting, the rabbit meat had already been roasted until it was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, with a golden brown surface. That alluring aroma made Gu Mengmeng, who was already famished, feel even more hungry. Swallowing her saliva, Gu Mengmeng decided to tear a rabbit leg for Elvis after an internal struggle. After all, she did not know how long she would have to stay here, she still had to cling onto his thigh. Thus, Gu Mengmeng swallowed her saliva while tearing off the rabbit's left hind leg to fawn over Elvis. The words "I'm so hungry, I want to eat" were clearly written on her face, but her mouth was saying, "Leader, why don't you try my cooking first?" Elvis did not take the rabbit meat from Gu Mengmeng's hands, but this did not prevent Gu Mengmeng's actions from greatly pleasing him. She shared the food with him. In her starving state, she shared the food that she cooked personally with him. Thus, Elvis unilaterally and generously forgave Gu Mengmeng for giving him the cold shoulder while chatting with Barit. He only smirked arrogantly, pushing the rabbit leg in Gu Mengmeng's hands back to her, saying arrogantly, "Females have the priority to enjoy all the food. This is the rule of the beast world. I am the leader of Saint Nazir, I will not snatch a female's food." Gu Mengmeng was famished long ago, even though the rabbit leg did not have any seasoning, just the barbecued smell was enough to make her mouth water. Not to mention a rabbit leg, Gu Mengmeng felt that even if she was given a cow, she would eat it without batting an eyelid. But considering her plan of cozying up to him, Gu Mengmeng forcefully stopped the rabbit meat by the side of her mouth and confirmed again, "You really don't want to try it first? Then I'll eat it. After I finish, there might not be any left. Eat." Elvis's smile was faint, with a hint of indulgence. Even though it was just a faint smile, it was not hard to see the meticulous pampering. Gu Mengmeng's patience had reached its limit. Even if Elvis came to snatch it from her again, she would not let him have it. He held the rabbit leg with both hands and chewed on it. Judging by modern standards, Gu Mengmeng's current table manners looked rather pathetic. But in the eyes of Elvis, Barit, Leah and the other males, she was extremely adorable. Chapter 40. The smell in the air just now was already fragrant and tempting enough. At this moment, they firmly believed that the processed food in Gu Mengmeng's hands must be incomparably delicious, more delicious than anything they could imagine. Just as Gu Mengmeng ate the second rabbit leg and burped in front of everyone, the male beasts below the platform of the deity's punishment were pushed aside to form a path. Those who were pushed to the sides were initially unhappy, but when they turned around and saw that it was a female from the tribe, they scratched their heads in embarrassment and moved away on their own accord. "Sandy, I'm sorry, Gu Mengmeng's food is too fragrant, so I didn't smell your scent." The males apologized as they moved to the sides. "Yeah, it's all right." Sandy smiled awkwardly. Although she was a female and the people in the tribe had always treated her well, compared to Nina, the first beauty, Sandy seemed to have gotten used to being ignored. "I also smelled the fragrance, so I came over to take a look." "Ow ow, the food that Gu Mengmeng made smells really delicious. Moreover, Gu Mengmeng is not only beautiful, she's also gentle and kind. If you want to eat, just tell her, she won't reject you." Gu Mengmeng's tap water number 1 said. Yes, I saw her sharing the food with Elvis just now. She's even willing to share the food with the males, so it's not a problem for the females." Gu Mengmeng's tap water number 2 added. Sandy smiled shyly. She was just lured over by the magical fragrance, but when she was really in front of Gu Mengmeng, she was too embarrassed to ask Gu Mengmeng to share the food with her. After all, she had 6 males herself. If she begged others for food, her males would be laughed at. She did not want others to say that her males could not even feed their own females. Because of her, they had been bullied by Nina and her partners enough. Gu Mengmeng, who was on the platform, was already full. She was the typical big-eyed but small-bellied person. Just now, she thought she could eat a cow, but now, her stomach clearly told her that her understanding of herself was very incomplete. Gu Mengmeng, who was preparing to distribute the remaining rabbit meat to others, naturally heard the discussion below the platform of the deity's punishment. She looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Sandy. Sandy had short hair and looked refreshing and sunny. She had a quiet and gentle smile that was slightly bashful but not coy. Her skin was a healthy wheat-colored and slightly stocky. She was on the borderline between strong and fat. Although it did not conform to modern aesthetics, her chubby body looked cute. Although they were both females from Saint Nazaire, Sandy and Nina formed a stark contrast. Gu Mengmeng had a natural liking for such a soft and shy girl. After all, she had been surrounded by a group of males for 2 days. Other than that annoying Nina, Sandy was the first person of the same gender Gu Mengmeng had met. Who said that like repels? Damn it, how much Gu Mengmeng wanted to hold hands with Sandy to increase her liking. She wanted to show the world what it meant to regret not having met earlier and to feel like old friends at first sight. Gu Mengmeng patted her butt and stood up. She walked to the edge of the platform of the deity's punishment and bent her knees to sit. Her legs hung naturally on the edge of the platform of the deity's punishment. Gu Mengmeng, who was sitting like this, was about a head taller than Sandy. Against the light, she reached out a slender and fair hand toward Sandy. Her radiant smile was as warm as the sun. Many years later, when Sandy recalled that day, she would still smile gently and imitate Gu Mengmeng's tone. "Hello, I'm Gu Mengmeng." Aside from the topic. Chapter 41. Sandy was dazzled by Gu Mengmeng's radiant smile. She looked up at Gu Mengmeng in a daze, feeling an indescribable sense of excitement. She was so beautiful that Sandy could not think of a suitable adjective even after racking her brains. And such a beautiful female did not look down on her just because she was a half-orc. She even reached out her hand to her. Sandy timidly reached out her hand, but stopped right in front of Gu Mengmeng's fingertips. How could a half-orc like her touch such a beautiful female? Gu Mengmeng did not give Sandy any time to feel sorry for herself. She reached out her arm and held Sandy's chubby little hand firmly. "Yeah, it felt really good to pinch it. I made roasted rabbit, let's eat together." Gu Mengmeng looked at Sandy's obviously greedy yet shy look. It was as if she was looking at her younger sister from the neighborhood when she was young, and she felt extremely close to her. Sandy was originally attracted by the smell of the roasted rabbit. Now that Gu Mengmeng pulled her, there was no reason for her not to eat. But looking at the male standing behind her, Sandy blushed and said softly, "I will only taste a little." Gu Mengmeng was not such a petty person. She held on to Sandy's arm and bumped her lightly with her shoulder. She winked and said, "Don't worry and eat, there's more." Although Sandy was a half-orc, she was still a precious female. So, other than the 2 rabbit legs that Gu Mengmeng ate, the rest of the rabbit was left untouched. It was Sandy's first time on the platform of the deity's punishment. She was a little nervous, but in front of the temptation of delicious food and Gu Mengmeng's passion, this little bit of nervousness was not a cause for fear. She obediently learned from Gu Mengmeng and sat cross-legged beside her. Her watery eyes were clear and transparent. That little bit of greedy thoughts was written all over her face. Gu Mengmeng looked at her charmingly naive look and her heart softened even more. She nimbly tore the remaining roasted rabbit into several small pieces. She picked the meaty parts and gave them to Sandy first. Then, she fawned over the meaty parts to Elvis. Although Gu Mengmeng did not give him the food first this time, considering that Sandy was a female and that Gu Mengmeng had given him the food first before she ate, Elvis was still very satisfied. Although a rabbit was bigger than a modern rabbit, it was still a rabbit. How much meat could it have? Gu Mengmeng held the remaining bit of meat in her hand and looked at the 3 males who were staring at her helplessly. "Don't look at me with that look of anticipation." Gu Mengmeng's heart was breaking down. The amount of meat in his hands was definitely not enough for 3 people to share. However, Mr. Holy seemed to have a high status. It wouldn't be nice not to share it with him. Barit had suffered so much for her. Even though he was so afraid of fire, he still knelt on the ground without moving, afraid that the beast deity whom no one had ever seen would vent his anger on her. This friendship was there for all to see. If she did not give it to him, Gu Mengmeng would curse herself for being a scum. Looking at Colin, who had helped clean up the rabbit meat just now. Although they weren't very familiar with each other, at least he had done his part. Was it okay to not give him? Sigh, there was a lack of resources. Just when Gu Mengmeng was in a dilemma, a soft voice sounded from behind her. Although it was so soft that it could not be heard, in Gu Mengmeng's ears, it had solved her urgent problem. "Gu Mengmeng, can I still eat a little more?" Aside from the topic, actually, there was another person kneeling on the platform of the deity's punishment. That was Quentin. However, Gu Mengmeng chose to ignore him. Chapter 42. "Sure, of course you can." Gu Mengmeng chuckled and turned around to pass the remaining rabbit meat to Sandy. She smiled and said, "You're a female, so you're very precious. If there's food, of course I should let you eat first, right? Right?" Although the 3 males who did not get to eat were a little disappointed, it was better to give it to Sandy than to the other males. Hence, they did not say anything and just nodded. Among them, Colin was the one who agreed the most. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with shock and admiration and said, "You're really the kindest and most gentle female I've ever met. Not only do you treat your pursuers so well, you're also so gentle and friendly to other females. Gu Mengmeng, you're really too special." Gu Mengmeng was a little embarrassed from the compliment. After all, strictly speaking, this rabbit was just leftovers from her meal. She was already embarrassed that Sandy did not despise it and even looked touched when she gave it to her. Now that Colin called it out with such a loud and clear voice, Gu Mengmeng felt even more guilty. "It's just a rabbit, it's not as exaggerated as you said." "Exactly." A sharp voice sounded and the temperature of the platform of the deity's punishment instantly dropped. Gu Mengmeng had goosebumps from the bottom of her feet when she heard this voice. It was not fear, it was disgust. Looking towards the source of the voice, it was indeed Nina walking towards them with a face full of hatred while twisting her fat butt. Even if the males were uncomfortable, they still had to make way for Nina. After all, she was a female. Nina did not care about what others thought. She was fully focused on the platform of the deity's punishment. That bitch. How dare she hit her? She must make her pay the price. Nina's partner transformed into a beast and laid on the ground, allowing Nina to step on his back and climb up the platform of the deity's punishment. Like a queen, Nina was supported by her other two partners on each side with her Doraemon-like hands. Her aura was really intimidating. Sandy was used to being bullied by Nina. Now that she saw her, her instinctive reaction was to hide behind her own males. But her males were all below the platform of the deity's punishment. They wanted to help her but were blocked by Nina's partners and could not come over at all. Sandy was anxious and afraid, and her eyes reddened involuntarily. I say, Sandy, even though you are just a lowly half-orc, you are still a female of Saint Nazir. How dare you eat something of unknown origin? Those who don't know would think that your male is too useless, and those who don't know would think that your male is too useless, causing you to go around begging for food because you can't eat your fill. Nina's sharp and harsh voice came flying towards Gu Mengmeng. Although her original target was only Gu Mengmeng, seeing how harmonious Sandy and Gu Mengmeng were, she was infuriated. Those who were close to Gu Mengmeng were her enemies. With this thought in mind, Nina's words became even harsher. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at Sandy with disdain. Aya, could it be that your males really can't satisfy you and made you starve? If that's the case, you can tell me. I can share some of my leftover bones and internal organs with you so that you can eat more. You won't have to go around begging for food. TSK TSK TSK, so ugly. Why does Saint Nazir have a female like you? I'm really ashamed to be in the same tribe as you, it's too embarrassing. Chapter 43. Seeing how Gu Mengmeng looked like she was about to rush up and hit someone, Nina instinctively took a small step back. After all, Gu Mengmeng was the first one to hit her. The wound on her head was still hurting. Although males couldn't hit females, they definitely wouldn't let their females be bullied. Therefore, the two males who were supporting Nina automatically took a step forward and shielded Nina behind them like a pair of door gods. Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth in anger, pointing at the noses of the two males and scolded, Females fight, males get lost. Yes, there was an unwritten rule in the beast world that males could not interfere in the fights between females. But in general, females in the beast world rarely had any conflicts. They would usually send their males to fight with the males of the other party to settle their problems. Gu Mengmeng's action of fighting personally had never been seen before. Gu Mengmeng saw that the pair of door gods did not budge and had no intention to move aside, which made her even angrier. She rolled up her sleeves and said fiercely, "What's wrong? Are you guys going to attack me too? Yesterday, you asked Quentin to kill me but he did not succeed. Today, you two are planning to be substitutes and kill me in front of everyone in Saint Nazir, right? Come on. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Nina's two males looked at Quentin, who was kneeling at the side, and signaled them with his eyes. They raised their hands and wanted to tell Gu Mengmeng, "If you want to hit someone, hit me, don't hit Nina." But before she could say anything, just as her hand moved, the aggressive Gu Mengmeng fell to the ground with a thud. This time, Gu Mengmeng put in a lot of effort. She fell down with a solid thud and her butt almost broke into 8 pieces. Her big, watery eyes shone with tears as she looked up at Elvis pitifully. She looked like a female lead in a Chiang Yao drama who was wronged but still stubborn. She said with a trembling voice that was on the verge of tears, "Leader, save me, eh?" The pair of door gods looked at each other in astonishment. Did they touch her just now? No, right, didn't they? Then why did she fall down? Could it be that she was too weak to stand up to the wind and was blown away by the wind they raised with their hands? These people who lived in the ancient times naturally did not know that Gu Mengmeng's play was called Pengsi Air when she was about to give birth. Yeah, the Oscars owed Gu Mengmeng 10086 Oscars. Males in the beast world had extremely good eyesight and Elvis was so close to them. Moreover, from the moment Nina appeared, he had been on guard, afraid that Gu Mengmeng would be at a disadvantage. So he could clearly see that Nina and the other two males definitely did not touch Gu Mengmeng. However, was that important? Gu Mengmeng had already fallen. Did it matter if they were the ones who pushed her? Like a gust of wind, Elvis flashed in front of Nina's pair of door gods. Gu Mengmeng did not blink, but she could not see Elvis's movements clearly. By the time she could see clearly, Nina's partners had already been lifted off the ground by Elvis, who was holding their necks. Then, with a loud bang, a cloud of dust rose under the platform of the deity's punishment. The pair of door gods were thrown down by Elvis. The males who were watching the commotion below the stage were already very contemptuous of Quentin's behavior. Now that Nina's other two partners actually dared to lay their hands on young females in front of everyone, this was simply inhumane. Damn, orcs were also humans. How shameless could they be? Chapter 44. Gu Mengmeng climbed up from the ground with a roll and stood half a step behind Elvis like a vile person intoxicated by success. She raised her head and looked at Nina with an even more arrogant aura than when Nina was facing Sandy just now. Nina, I'm going to kill you. Ugly monster, you were so arrogant just now. Come, tell me again, who is the one with an unknown background? Elvis raised his eyebrow and looked at Gu Mengmeng, who was obviously bullying others with her power. That glance was filled with infinite gentleness. Elvis felt extremely proud to be able to become her pillar of support. Thus, Elvis, who had always kept a respectful distance from the matters of females, did not feel that the disputes between females were boring and troublesome for the first time. Instead, he stood at the same spot and played the role of support, watching Gu Mengmeng's performance with relish. Nina had always been traumatized by Gu Mengmeng, but she only dared to find trouble with Gu Mengmeng because of her masculinity. But she never expected Elvis to intervene. The two of them standing side by side was like an insurmountable Himalayas to her. Nina did not expect Elvis to intervene. Nina was a little scared and instinctively wanted to escape, but she felt that she could not do it. Especially when Gu Mengmeng shouted, "Ugly monster," it really triggered her sensitive nerves. After all, she was the most beautiful female in the tribe. How could her beauty be slandered? Therefore, Nina mustered up her last bit of courage and puffed out her chest. She raised her head and said, I'm talking to Sandy. What does it have to do with you? Sandy is my friend, what you say about her has got to do with me. Gu Mengmeng held on to Sandy's arm and secretly held on to Sandy's trembling hand. She did not mind that Sandy's palms were all sweaty and only raised her chin to signal Sandy with her eyes. Then, she asked, "Right, Sandy?" Yeah. We are friends." Sandy was always timid in front of Nina. Even with Gu Mengmeng's support, she still did not dare to look Nina in the eye. She just hid behind Gu Mengmeng like a frightened chick, seeking protection. But, Gu Mengmeng's petite figure could not even cover half of Sandy's rotund figure, so this scene was rather funny. But at this moment, Nina could not be bothered to make fun of Sandy and Gu Mengmeng's physique. She only felt that she was about to die from anger. She could not afford to offend Gu Mengmeng, but who asked this bitch to have Elvis and Barit backing her up? But Sandy, this lowly half-orc female, actually dared to go against her so brazenly? This was simply turning the sky upside down. Sandy, come here. With that, Nina pounced over, wanting to pull Sandy from behind Gu Mengmeng and teach her a harsh lesson. How could Gu Mengmeng let her have her way? Just as Nina pounced over, Gu Mengmeng pulled Sandy to the side and avoided Nina's attack. At the same time, she tripped Nina's leg and Nina fell flat on her face. It fell right in front of Quentin. Quentin wanted to reach out his hand to help Nina up, but his wrist was held by a fair and slender hand. His voice was calm, but with a hint of seduction. If you reach out your hand to help Nina up now, this matter will not be as simple as a small conflict between females. Do you have the confidence to win against Barit, Elvis, and me? Aside from the topic, author, Gu Mengmeng, it's not right to bully others. Gu Mengmeng clasped her fingers and looked at author Ian. Nina is not human. Author Ian, Gu Mengmeng, why are you scolding others? Gu Mengmeng shrugged. I told you, Nina is not human. Author Ian, Gu Meng Meng, you can't say that Nina is not human just because she has a conflict with you. Gu Meng Meng, are you Xuanzang? Can't you tell that this is the beast world? Who knows what kind of seductress Nina is? Just you wait, I'll beat her into her original form for you to see. Author Ian. A mess in the wind. Gu Meng Meng, close the door, let Elvis go. Chapter 45. Quentin stopped his outstretched hand abruptly. He could have fought Barit to a draw, and if he had fought with all his might, he might have won. But now that he had lost an arm, it was impossible for him to defeat Barit. Moreover, other than Barit, Elvis and Leah were by Gu Meng Meng's side. Looking at Quentin slowly putting down his hand and finally clenching it into a fist, Leah clicked his tongue in regret. I thought you would be very willing to give me a chance to perform. Quentin did not reply, his brows were tightly furrowed as he made eye contact with Nina, who was sprawled in front of him. Nina had heard the entire conversation between Quentin and Leah, but she did not think that Quentin's silence was to help her. Instead, she thought that Quentin was timid and weak, allowing Gu Meng Meng to bully him because he was afraid of Barit, Elvis and Leah. Nina did not dare to lose her temper at Leah and Elvis, but she was not so polite to Quentin. She sprawled on the ground and did not even straighten up, one of her hands slapping the ground with all her might to show her anger. She glared at Quentin with her black chicken-like eyes, pointing at his nose and scolding, "You useless fellow, you can't even handle a small matter properly. Now that I'm being bullied, you actually stand by and do nothing? I don't have a useless male like you, I want to break off the partnership with you, I must." Quentin did not reply, his eyes just stared deeply at Nina, who was flipping out. His gaze was deep and reserved, making one feel sorry for him. For Nina, how many things had he done that went against his conscience? Even if he would be abandoned by the beast deity, as long as it could make Nina happy, he would do it. But this was already the second time she said that she wanted to break off the partnership with him. Nina's words caused the scene to sink into a strange silence. Even the males who were beating up Nina's other two partners stopped and looked towards the platform of the deity's punishment with furrowed brows. Quentin was indeed despicable to lay his hands on Gu Meng Meng, but he was willing to risk the public's anger to do it, all for Nina. But Nina said that she wanted to break off the partnership with him. This was really disappointing. Even the pair of door gods, who were beaten up by the male beasts, looked at Quentin with sympathy in their eyes. However, Nina was not moved at all. She propped her fat body up with her elbows and sat on the ground while panting. She acted like a shrew as she pointed at Quentin and scolded, "I was willing to mate with you back then because you could fly, but what happened in the end? His wings were actually crippled by someone. Tell me, can an eagle without wings still be considered an eagle? It's fine if you can't fly, but now you've even lost an arm. A crippled beast like you is even worse than a half-beast. What do I need you for? Today, we might as well dissolve our partnership. From now on, you can never say that you're my partner." Gu Meng Meng also felt angry after hearing Nina's words. Just as she was about to argue with her, Sandy pulled her arm and shook her head at her. Gu Meng Meng thought that Sandy was worried that she would get into trouble, so she patted the back of Sandy's hand and said, "Don't worry, I'm not afraid of her." Sandy used a little force and pulled Gu Meng Meng, who was about to dash out, back. She was in a difficult position, but she still whispered into Gu Meng Meng's ear, "You can't help Quentin, don't go over." Aside from the topic, yeah, I know, Nina is not an important person. I'm just using her to expound on the views of marriage in the beast world. Chapter 46. Gu Meng Meng looked at Sandy in confusion, not understanding what was going on. Sandy pursed her lips and lowered her voice even further. "This is a tacit agreement between females. We cannot interfere with the matters between other females and their males." Gu Meng Meng looked at Sandy and nodded after thinking for a moment. That's right, even an upright official would find it hard to settle a family matter. As an outsider, it was indeed inconvenient for her to interfere with the matters between a couple. Gu Meng Meng sighed and suppressed her manic chivalrous heart. She decided to be a down-to-earth onlooker and watched the live version of the breakup arena. "If I were Quentin, would have dumped Nina long ago." Gu Mengmeng twitched her mouth in disdain and tilted her head slightly to tell Sandy. Gu Mengmeng's voice was very low, but it was still heard by everyone. Her words were even more unacceptable than Nina's saying that she wanted to break off her partnership with Quentin. This was simply a universally shocking concept. Sandy was also quite shocked. She looked at Gu Mengmeng with her big, adorable eyes and only spoke after a long time. Males can only mate once in their lives. Once they break off their partnership with their partners, they will receive the punishment of the fury of the beast deity. Even if the stronger ones can survive, they will become stray beasts and never feel happiness or warmth again. They can only live like the walking dead. Moreover, they will be chased and killed by all the orcs. That kind of life is very miserable. F***ck? Gu Mengmeng's eyes widened even more than Sandy's. That was too inhumane. Not allowing a divorce when the relationship between husband and wife was broken. Why did a divorce sound like it was destroying the entire Milky Way galaxy and they were chased and killed by everyone? What did my divorce have to do with you? Facing Gu Mengmeng's astonishment, Sandy clearly did not understand. This was common sense. Why did Gu Mengmeng not seem to know about it? Gu Mengmeng looked at Sandy's expression and roughly knew that she had overreacted. Perhaps, in this world where the ratio of males to females was so abnormal, such a rule was a form of protection for females? Otherwise, with the willful and suicidal nature of females in the beast world, males would probably have strangled numerous females like Nina to death. Although Nina was despicable, but if the females were all strangled to death, then the beast world would not be able to continue reproducing. Gu Mengmeng understood this point and the expression on her face softened a little. She shook her head and said, "Forget it, forget it. Why should we join in the fight between the husband and wife? Come on, let's go back and eat. Look, your rabbit meat is getting cold. Do you want me to heat it up for you?" At the mention of food, Sandy immediately forgot about Gu Mengmeng's strange behavior just now. She nodded with her eyes shining and said softly, "Gu Mengmeng, the rabbit meat you made is so delicious, it's different from what I've eaten before. There's a type. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really delicious." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. "Eat more if you like it." As Gu Mengmeng spoke, she placed the remaining rabbit meat in Sandy's hands back on the fire to roast. However, the position of the roasted meat was even closer to Nina and Quentin. Hence, Gu Mengmeng was like a popcorn seller at the entrance of a cinema. She did not need to buy a ticket, but she did not miss out on anything that happened in the cinema. The aroma of the roasted rabbit wafted through the air, causing Nina to be tongue-tied. She could not even scold Quentin properly. Looking at Sandy taking a bite of the rabbit meat in satisfaction, that blissful look on her face made her bite her tongue accidentally. Damn it! Nina was extremely angry. She was the first beauty of the tribe. Since when did delicious food belong to a lowly half-orc female like Sandy? Aside from the topic, to be honest, I am very conflicted now. Damn it, I want to blacken Quentin and make Nina break off the partnership with him. Then, Quentin will turn around and kill Nina for revenge? How about it? Is there anyone who supports me? I feel so aggrieved. Damn it, I did everything for you. Damn it, you didn't even ask me how my broken arm is. Damn it, you only know how to scold people. P.S. Let's guess with a prize. What race is Nina? The reward for guessing correctly is 20xxb. Hint 1. Birds. Chapter 47. Nina was infuriated. She rushed forward and before Gu Mengmeng could react, she smashed the roasted rabbit that Gu Mengmeng had just warmed up for Sandy onto the ground. She then looked at Sandy arrogantly and said, "I said not to eat, are you deaf?" Gu Mengmeng already disliked Nina. Although she would not stand up for Quentin like a saint, it did not mean that Gu Mengmeng could accept Nina's way of doing things. Moreover, Nina had been looking for trouble the moment she came out. Gu Mengmeng wanted to beat her up just now, but she suddenly turned around and targeted Quentin in the middle of a quarrel. This caused Gu Mengmeng to be unable to vent her anger and could only endure it. Now, She came to look for trouble again and even smashed the food that was meant for Sandy onto the ground. Looking at Sandy's aggrieved look, Gu Mengmeng was so angry that she was about to burst into flames. Hey, are you crazy? Just because you said not to eat means not to eat, who are you? With Gu Mengmeng's push, Nina staggered a step back. Because she was prepared, she did not fall this time. Because of Quentin's silence, Nina, who was already in a bad mood, completely vented her anger on Gu Mengmeng. What was so good about this skinny young female? Barit liked her, Elvis liked her, and now even Leah expressed his support and affection towards her. How hateful! All these outstanding males should have belonged to her, the first beauty of the tribe. So, Nina copied Gu Mengmeng's actions and pushed back, not to be outdone. Gu Mengmeng's body was petite and slender. Naturally, Nina, who was bloated and lacked training, could not be compared to her. She just lowered her body slightly and dodged Nina's attack easily. She then swung her fist and hit Nina's fat stomach. Damn it, Gu Mengmeng's fist was completely buried in Nina's overturned stomach. She felt that she could not exert any force on it, as if her fist had landed on cotton. It was so light that it made her feel uncomfortable. But even so, Gu Mengmeng's years of martial arts and Sonda training in the gym were not for nothing. To Nina, who had never been hit before, a heavy blow almost took her life. She sat down on the floor and wailed, "Ah, murder. This young female wants to kill me. Someone save me." Nina thought that her pitiful plea for help would definitely trigger a male's protective instincts, because she clearly saw Elvis's muscles tensing up when Gu Mengmeng did that. He looked like he was going to destroy the world, as if whoever stood opposite Gu Mengmeng deserved to die. So, Nina learned from Gu Mengmeng and added some of her own acting skills, forcefully portraying what it meant to be a pitiful wailing like a pig being slaughtered. However, her appearance was not completely useless. At the very least, her male felt his heart ache. Unfortunately, Quentin, who was kneeling on the platform of the deity's punishment, didn't dare to move. The two who dared to move below the platform were beaten to the point that they couldn't get up. Gu Mengmeng was already furious and felt even more annoyed after hearing her wailing and howling. She simply flipped over and rode on Nina's body. She swung her arms and slapped Nina more than 10 times, scolding as she slapped, "I'll let you howl. I'll make you howl. Howl. Howl again." Gu Mengmeng only stopped after slapping Nina's face till it was swollen. Nina had never seen such a scene before and she was completely dumbfounded from the slaps. Looking at Gu Mengmeng riding on her, she did not even have the courage to push her. Seeing that Nina was completely obedient, Gu Mengmeng then dusted her hands and stood up. She looked down at Nina and said, "Remember, I'm Gu Mengmeng. Sandy is my friend. If you dare to bully her again, I'll beat you up every time I see you." Aside from the topic, author, cough cough, to promote the correct values, hitting people is not right. Babies, remember not to hit people for no reason. Gu Mengmeng, it's not right to hit people, but it's effective. Author, let's talk nicely, don't hit. Gu Mengmeng, let's not quarrel when we can fight. Maintaining silence is also a virtue. We'll hit people quietly and leave quietly. Author, Gu Mengmeng. I don't allow you to hit people, no no no. Gu Mengmeng shrugged her shoulders, alright, I won't hit people, anyway Nina is not a human. Chapter 48. I am a female, you can't hit me. Nina protested with a trembling voice as she cried out in fear and indignation. Gu Mengmeng snorted in amusement and threw a punch towards Nina's face. Nina was so frightened that she took a step back and curled up into a ball. She looked pathetic and funny at the same time. However, Gu Mengmeng's fist stopped an inch away from the tip of Nina's nose. Gu Mengmeng stuck out her thumb and pointed it at herself. She smiled confidently and teasingly, "I'm going to hit you. Hit me back if you can. You are barbaric." Nina saw that Gu Mengmeng had no intention to continue hitting her. Her face was swollen and her words were unclear as if she had a soy egg in her mouth. "Thank you for your compliment. Gu Mengmeng cupped her fists and smiled in disdain. She turned to the cute Sandy and completely ignored Nina, who was looking for her teeth all over the ground. It was the first time Sandy saw Nina at a disadvantage, and it was so pitiful. Although she felt that Gu Mengmeng's way of handling things was weird, so what? The main point was to vent her anger. Sandy pursed her lips and smiled secretly. She pulled Gu Mengmeng's hand and said softly, "Don't rush out by yourself next time. What if you get hurt?" Gu Mengmeng broke into a grin, completely different from when she was beating up Nina. She was as warm as a heartless big sister next door, half coaxing, don't worry, if I can't beat you, I will definitely run away. I am not stupid. I will still rush out if I can't beat her." Sandy was also smiling with her eyes curved. She liked Gu Mengmeng so much. Friends, so there was such a relationship between females too. Sandy sat back down beside the small fire. Perhaps it was because of Gu Mengmeng, the flame devil that people feared previously only made her feel warm. The orange-red glow seemed so gentle and holy. "Hey! Don't eat!" Gu Mengmeng stopped Sandy from picking up the food that Nina threw away. Looking at Sandy's confused gaze, Gu Mengmeng really wanted to educate her on the basics of food hygiene. But, how could she overcome the gap in knowledge? Gu Mengmeng shook off the 3 black lines on her forehead and said in the most direct way, "It's already cold, don't eat anymore." Sandy pouted and stared at the half-eaten rabbit skewer with watery eyes. Her pitiful look melted Gu Mengmeng's heart. "Ah, Gu Mengmeng, you are so cruel. How could he stop a foodie from eating?" Gu Mengmeng berated herself in her heart. In the end, he couldn't resist Sandy's gluttonous cuteness. He pulled Sandy's little hand and said, "I'll go ask my boss if he has anything else to eat. I'll make a lot of delicious food. Don't do it, okay?" Upon hearing that there were so many delicious foods, Sandy nodded her head hurriedly. Gu Mengmeng could even see stars twinkling in Sandy's eyes. Thus, he returned the same bright smile. She really liked Sandy more and more. The platform of the deity's punishment was about 5 to 6 square meters in size, so Elvis could hear the entire conversation between Gu Mengmeng and Sandy. Thus, when he saw Gu Mengmeng's gaze slowly turning around with a slightly pleading expression, he felt as if his heart had suffered a heavy blow. So, a critical hit with a warning was even more lethal. "Here." Elvis handed over the portion of roasted rabbit that Gu Mengmeng had given him just now to Gu Mengmeng without any hesitation. That was originally what he wanted to keep. So, he resisted the urge of his taste buds and did not even dare to take a bite. But no matter how delicious the food was, how could it not be compared to Gu Mengmeng's every frown and smile? Even if it was what she wanted, even if he had to snatch it by force, even if he had to go through water and tread on fire, he would never let her suffer even the slightest bit. Aside from the topic, Gu Mengmeng, Sandy is so cute, so soft and cute that it's easy to push her down. Chapter 49. Gu Mengmeng looked at the already cold roasted rabbit that Elvis passed to her and asked pitifully, "Leader, don't you like the food I made?" Elvis's expression froze and he shook his head with a frown. How could he not like it? He loved it so much that he wanted to swallow it whole. Only heaven knew how much he cherished it, unwilling to part with it, and that was why he endured this desire, leaving this piece of rabbit meat behind. "Then why didn't you eat?" Gu Mengmeng pouted and looked at Elvis pitifully. Being stared at by Gu Mengmeng's big eyes, Elvis could only stretch out his slender fingers and carelessly play with Gu Mengmeng's hair. Looking at her furry little head, he felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. "It's for you, I'm afraid you'll be hungry again." Elvis did not even know how gentle and sweet his voice was at that moment. Gu Mengmeng sighed silently. It was really hard to survive in the beast world. Even a demon like Leader had learned how to kill by touching his head. What if she couldn't control herself? *CK, what was the difference between this and teasing the husky in the neighborhood? Gu Mengmeng shook her head silently in her heart, telling herself over and over again, "I am a good youth of socialism, my 3 views are upright." Love between humans and beasts can be seen in cartoons, but a real-life version, tisk, anyway, she could not act it herself. Elvis did not know what Gu Mengmeng was thinking about. He only saw her shaking her head and thought that she did not believe him. He was a little anxious but did not know what to do. In a moment of desperation, he stuffed the entire roasted rabbit into his mouth, using his actions to prove that he did not despise Gu Mengmeng's culinary skills. Gu Mengmeng was puzzled by Elvis's sudden way of eating, as if he wanted to choke himself to death. Was everyone in the beast world like this? Committing suicide at the slightest disagreement? Choking to death was also a very unique choice. While Gu Mengmeng was in a daze, Elvis had already swallowed the entire roasted rabbit. That smell, it was as if he had opened the door to a new world. It turned out that meat could be eaten like this. The excitement in Elvis's heart was indescribable. He held on to Gu Mengmeng's petite shoulders tightly and brought her into his arms. He said in the most affectionate tone, "So delicious. F***ck me." Gu Mengmeng almost bit her own tongue. To be able to hear someone say, "delicious," in a way that was even more touching than, "I love you," in her entire life, it could be said that she had learned something new. Boss, if you like it, I'll cook for you often in the future. Gu Mengmeng suppressed her slightly restless heart and kept repeating in her heart, "Elvis is a husky, Elvis is a husky, yes, Elvis was a husky." Thinking about it this way, hugging and touching her was nothing much, no. Elvis rested his chin lightly on Gu Mengmeng's furry little head and fiddled with her hair in a seemingly nonchalant manner. In actual fact, he was extremely excited as he said, "I will cook for you in the future. After all, I'm the boss, and I have to protect you." Gu Mengmeng's eyes sparkled and she gave Elvis 2 thumbs up. She said with utmost sincerity, "You're really one of a kind in this world, unprecedented in history, the best leader in all of eternity." Elvis could not understand much of this string of praises. But Gu Mengmeng's worshipping expression had thoroughly pleased Elvis. The corners of his lips curled upwards, forming a proud arc. Elvis looked at the fire pile that Barit was carefully taking care of and revealed a wild and determined smile. How could he lose to Gu Mengmeng's other pursuers? In any aspect, it was absolutely impossible. Aside from the topic, Elvis, so in your heart, I'm just a substitute. Gu Mengmeng shook her head with her eyes wide open. Elvis, you don't have to lie to me, I already know. Gu Mengmeng's black face full of question marks. Elvis, say, who do you think the husky is? How did you know him? Which stage are you 2 at now? Gu Mengmeng. Kiss, hug. Raise high. Leader, where are you going? Chapter 50. Gu Mengmeng looked at the lump of charred and bloodied meat that looked like roasted meat. She felt from the bottom of her heart that her praise for Elvis just now was too exaggerated. She deeply understood that looks did not represent everything. At least, it did not represent culinary skills. Turning a perfectly fresh piece of meat into a biochemical weapon was also a kind of talent. Gu Mengmeng definitely could not eat it. But if she said she did not want to eat it, she could not resist Elvis's pair of expectant eyes. Gu Mengmeng struggled for a while and decided to put up with her stomach to please Elvis. After all, leader was the truth and looks were justice. Gu Mengmeng bit down on Elvis's masterpiece with the determination to die for justice. There was a charcoal taste in her mouth, and when she chewed, there was a loud crunching sound. Gu Mengmeng's sense of taste had already activated its self-protection mechanism and she could not taste anything. Yes, her tongue was numb. The only thing she was worried about now was whether her little white teeth could withstand the test of this roasted meat that was comparable to a small rock. Her stomach rolled, followed by a twitching pain. Drops of sweat appeared on Gu Mengmeng's forehead, making the smile she was trying her best to maintain look especially heart-wrenching. Males were naturally sensitive, and Elvis already knew that he might have messed up the moment Gu Mengmeng saw that piece of roasted meat. However, he was still holding on to the hope that it might not look good and that the taste was not bad. After all, he used a lot of courage and love to roast it. But Gu Mengmeng only took one bite and her forehead was already full of sweat. Elvis could not help but recall what Gu Mengmeng said when she asked him to find a piece of wood, or else I will die. It seemed like the beast deity world had a unique way of cooking food. If the messenger of the beast deity ate the wrong food, she would really die. Thinking of this, Elvis's heart tightened. He went forward and smacked the roasted meat in Gu Mengmeng's hand, saying with a black face, "Don't eat it." Leader. Gu Mengmeng was a little worried. Actually, Elvis was really nice to her, but she was still afraid of him, especially when he showed clear signs of anger or anger. She was especially afraid of him. Perhaps, this was because she had seen Elvis's original form. Humans had a natural fear towards wild beasts, especially ferocious ones like wolves, tigers, and leopards. Try mine. A tree branch with barbecued meat was extended in front of Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng looked up along the branch and saw Mr. Holy radiating a godlike radiance, smiling and coming to save her. Beauty, thank you. Gu Mengmeng still did not know Mr. Holy's name, but he could always jump out at crucial moments to give her a sense of security. It was the same last night when Quentin wanted to kill her, and it was the same now when she was afraid because of Elvis's anger. Gu Mengmeng did not know why, but the words he said last night rang in her ears. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Mr. Holy responded with a faint smile and said, "If beauty is a title, can you add my name after the title?" Gu Mengmeng nodded, then shook her head. She lowered her head in guilt and said, "You saved my life, but I don't know your name." "I'm sorry. Leah." Mr. Holy's voice was as gentle as the choir in the church. It naturally made people feel blessed. "Promise me that you will remember my name and never forget it, all right?" Beauty. Leah. Gu Mengmeng smiled brightly, her eyes curved into crescent moons, clearly reflecting Lee's shadow. Chapter 51. Elvis felt very uncomfortable, but he could not explain the reason. He only knew that he really disliked the way Gu Mengmeng was looking at Leah. It made him feel very uneasy, anxious, and frustrated. But he could not stop Leah from getting close to Gu Mengmeng. He and the entire Saint Nazaire must support all the factors that could make Gu Mengmeng choose to stay in Saint Nazaire. Even though he really hoped that this factor could be him, and only him. But if it was not him, or not only him, then he would rather it be Leah than anyone else. As an opponent, Leah was undoubtedly the most troublesome person. But as a partner, Leah was the most reassuring. Elvis knew that if both Leah and himself could become Gu Mengmeng's partners, it would be the most advantageous situation for both Gu Mengmeng and Saint Nazaire. So, Elvis endured the bulging veins and clenched his fists tightly. He watched as the pink atmosphere between Gu Mengmeng and Leah continued to glow, but did not rush up to break it and bring Gu Mengmeng away. If Gu Mengmeng's identity as the messenger of the beast deity was exposed, she would be safer with Leah and him protecting her together. Elvis kept repeating this in his heart to suppress his urge to rush up and attack Leah. But the time that Elvis felt was long and torturous was actually less than a minute. Because no matter how much Gu Mengmeng was obsessed with beauty, she could not resist her physiological reaction. From a crafty and supernatural point of view, Elvis's roasted meat, which was not a perfect combination of charred and fresh, had won Lee's beauty. Gu Mengmeng felt her stomach cramping up. No matter how good Lee's roasted meat was, she could not open her mouth to take a bite. Gu Mengmeng held onto her stomach and squatted down, curling up in pain. This situation made everyone extremely worried. Elvis especially blamed himself. He should not have let Gu Mengmeng eat something that he had not tasted before. He was too careless. Leah was Saint Nazaire's witch doctor. Taking care of the females in Saint Nazaire was his top priority. So when Gu Mengmeng showed such pain, his reaction was the fastest. That piece of roasted meat, which he had put so much effort into, was casually thrown aside. Leah took a step forward and carried Gu Mengmeng in his arms, using the posture of carrying a baby to let her relax as much as possible. His slender and fair fingers caressed Gu Mengmeng's forehead gently. Leah said with concern, "Don't be afraid, tell me where you are feeling unwell. I can cure you." To be honest, Gu Mengmeng felt a little embarrassed being hugged like this. However, the joy in his heart was indescribable. Which girl doesn't want to be cherished? A handsome, gentle, capable and attentive male god like Leah would hug you gently, as if he was holding the most precious treasure in the world. His pair of eyes that could turn the world upside down would only focus on you, as if he had poured all his tenderness into you. His slightly furrowed brows betrayed his worry. When he gently touched her forehead, it was as if there was an electric current flowing from his fingertips straight to her heart. But Gu Mengmeng could not open her mouth to speak. To her now, Elvis's dark cuisine was nothing at all, because the pain from her lower abdomen was so familiar. Damn it, there was a warm current that seemed to be controlling her prehistoric energy. Chapter 52. A sweet fragrance slowly spread out and the entire Saint Nazaire was stirred. Yes, another young female in the Saint Nazaire tribe had come of age. Even though it was only her second day in the tribe, she was still a female in Saint Nazaire. The coming of age of every female was a joyous event for the tribe. Firstly, it was because the birth rate of females was extremely low, and coupled with the fact that they were born weak, it was not easy for them to successfully live to adulthood. Secondly, since the young females were born, all the unmated males in the tribe had the obligation to take care of and protect them. Therefore, on the day that the young female became an adult, the tribe would hold a grand bonfire party, allowing the matured young female to choose a male she liked from among the single males to become her partner. It was very important to be the first partner of the female in the future. No matter how many partners the female had in the future, the first partner's status in the family would be second only to the female. And because the female basically did not have to do anything and did not care about anything, the first partner in the family basically held the power and gave the orders. Moreover, although the adult Gu Mengmeng had only come to the tribe for 2 days, she had brought too many surprises to Saint Nazaire. She brought the fire of hope bestowed by the beast deity and delicious food. She was kind, friendly, righteous and extremely beautiful. Such a female had come of age today. The arrival of happiness was too sudden, and the males in Saint Nazaire would definitely fall into madness and excitement. On the other hand, Elvis's conflict, Lee's faint smile and Barit's unbearable agony. Yes, Barit was one of the top suitors among Gu Mengmeng's pursuers, and Gu Mengmeng clearly treated him differently. If he could confess his love to her at the bonfire party today, even if he was not her first partner, he could definitely become one of her partners. But now, he had to kneel on the platform of the deity's punishment, and there were still 2 days left. In these 2 days, he could only watch Gu Mengmeng choose someone else. However, Gu Mengmeng, who had caused all the commotion, had no idea what her great-aunt had brought to the males in Saint Nazaire. She only blushed and looked at Leah, who was smiling warmly at her, thinking about how to tell him that even if he was the living Huatua, he could not cure her menstrual pain. Gu Mengmeng gently squirmed and tried to stand up from Lee's arms. Although she felt that Lee's embrace was very warm and comfortable, but it was too shameful for someone who was on her period and didn't even bring a sanitary pad to stay in someone else's embrace. Leah tightened his arms and stopped Gu Mengmeng's actions. He looked around the platform of the deity punishment and looked at the males, who were getting even more excited because of Gu Mengmeng's actions. His rose-red lips moved closer to Gu Mengmeng's ears and said in a deep voice that sounded like a cell, "Don't leave me." It was not an exagger. Gu Mengmeng had goosebumps. Was she being seduced, or was she being seduced? He had watched countless Korean dramas, but in the end, he was flirted with by an ancient beast. Gu Mengmeng pressed against her wildly beating heart and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She was having a final battle with her worldview. Since the beautiful Leah had already said so much, should she pounce on him or pounce on him? Leah looked back at Gu Mengmeng, his rosy lips pressing down slowly, stopping less than 2 millimeters away from the tip of Gu Mengmeng's nose. Opening his thin lips slightly, a moist and warm breath sprayed onto the tip of Gu Mengmeng's nose. That ambiguous feeling assaulted her face, catching her off guard. Chapter 53. Howl howl. Gu Mengmeng could even hear the wolf howling in her heart. Control, she must control herself. Gu Mengmeng suppressed her heart that was beating erratically, pursed her lips and said, "I'm fine, let go of me." Leah hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin with his slender fingers, as if he was deliberating over something, but did not say anything. He just led her to turn her face to the side, shifting her gaze away from his face, and glanced at the beasts with green eyes under the platform of the deity's punishment. Then, he hooked her chin back and asked with a faint smile, "Sandy might not be able to protect you." Gu Mengmeng felt thousands of beasts galloping through her heart. What was going on? Did the werewolves transform collectively on the night of the full moon? The bunch of good-looking guys just now, why were they all like beasts staring at a food cart in a zoo? And unfortunately, Gu Mengmeng herself was equivalent to a food cart. Gu Mengmeng was shocked and instinctively wrapped her arms around Li's neck, trying her best to burrow deeper into Li's arms. She couldn't care less about her period anymore. Her life was more important. Gu Mengmeng's actions made the fragrant blood smell spread even thicker. Leah, who was hugging her, was not spared from being affected. His heart was beating, once, twice, strongly and forcefully. This long-lost feeling made Leah frown, but his expression was almost indiscernible. Other than Elvis, no one else noticed. Not going down? Leah shifted his attention to Gu Mengmeng, making himself look normal so that no one would notice his abnormality. Gu Mengmeng shook her head like a rattle drum. Go down, what kind of joke was this? Damn it, she had a premonition that as long as she left Li's side, this bunch of green-eyed servants would tear her apart and devour her, leaving not even her bones behind. Leah smiled in satisfaction at Gu Mengmeng's reaction. He stood up slowly, cleanly, and without any unnecessary movements. He supported Gu Mengmeng's but with one hand, while his other hand hung by his side nonchalantly. In order not to fall, Gu Mengmeng could only hug onto Li's neck with all her might, not daring to relax at all. Their faces were pressed against each other and Li's heart was stirred up by Gu Mengmeng's delicate skin and fragrant scent. Even though he tried his best to control his emotions, his tone still revealed too much flirtatiousness. Are you going back to Elvis or me? Gu Mengmeng's heart skipped a beat. The more dangerous the outside world was, the more seductive this kind of ambiguity was. Gu Mengmeng buried her entire face in the crook of Li's neck, so she did not see that her small action made Leah hold his breath and that he was at a loss for what to do. Send me back to Boss. Boss will protect me. I can protect you too. This sentence almost slipped out of his mouth, but Leah strangled it to his throat. After a few twists and turns, he finally managed to extract it into the word good. Leah walked past Elvis and the two of them exchanged glances. The tacit understanding they had developed from years of going through life and death situations allowed them to communicate without words. Tonight, the bonfire party to celebrate Gu Mengmeng's coming of age would definitely be very exciting. But the final victors could only be the two of them. Elvis and Leah walked side by side, protecting Gu Mengmeng who was nestled in Li's arms like an ostrich. They passed through the crowd of eager males, exuding the pressure of the strong, and none of them dared to act rashly. Meanwhile, on the platform of the deity's punishment, Barit, who was staring at their backs, punched the ground hard. A crack appeared on the stone and his fist was covered in blood. Aside from the topic, the good news was that Gu Mengmeng's aunt announced that she was coming of age. The bad news was that there would be no meat in the strict crackdown. The author shrugged her shoulders innocently. Chapter 54. Gu Mengmeng was still dumbfounded when she returned to Elvis's winter snow. The males followed Elvis's cave and stopped at the edge of Elvis's territory. They did not dare to go any closer due to Elvis's strong beast pressure, but they did not leave and kept pacing back and forth. Gu Mengmeng was so scared that she almost cried. She could defeat Nina, but it did not mean that she could defeat a group of abnormally strong males. Leader, you won't let them eat me up, right? Elvis's face darkened and he was in an extremely bad mood. His little follower was being coveted by all the single males in the tribe. No one would be in a good mood. Moreover, she had promised to be his follower and not leave his side. But she had been glued to Li's body the whole time and did not even look at him. You still know that I am your leader? Elvis's voice carried a tinge of anger. Leader. Gu Mengmeng whimpered pitifully with a sobbing tone. Don't worry. It's not their turn yet. Gu Mengmeng's eyebrows twitched. Leader, still decided to eat her up? Just as Gu Mengmeng was at a loss, Leah had already taken out a piece of soft and white beast skin from the depths of Elvis's cave with ease. He folded it in half and placed some herbs that Gu Mengmeng could not name in the middle. The reason why she could confirm that it was herbs was mainly because the smell of Chinese medicine was too strong. It was strangely similar to the smell coming from the Moxibustion hall below Gu Mengmeng's house. Then, Leah sewed the beast skin to a suitable size and it was smooth and comfortable. Without saying anything, he lifted Gu Mengmeng's skirt. Gu Mengmeng was so shocked that her body trembled. She grabbed onto the hem of her skirt and stared at Leah in disbelief. She wanted to scold him as a rascal, but looking at his face that was glowing with holy light and his calm expression, Gu Mengmeng could not bring herself to scold him. You will feel more comfortable if you put this on. Li's tone was calm, which made Gu Mengmeng, who was on guard, feel like she was gauging a gentleman with her own mean measure. But, no matter how much of a gentleman he was, he could not lift someone's skirt. Gu Mengmeng coughed awkwardly and snatched the barbaric version of an ante from Li's hands. She nodded and stepped back, saying, I'll do it myself, I'll do it myself. Li's slender fingers threaded through Gu Mengmeng's silky hair and supported the back of her head firmly, while his other hand wrapped around Gu Mengmeng's waist. His actions were intimate and natural, as if they were supposed to be hugging each other like this. He naturally held Gu Mengmeng in his arms. Leaning against Gu Mengmeng's ear, Li's voice was filled with temptation. You have to try and get used to relying on us, or else, we will be hurt. Huh? Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded, completely unable to understand what Leah meant. Dependent. But he didn't have to rely on her to the point of changing sanitary pads for her, right? Shame, just thinking about it makes me feel so ashamed. Chapter 55. Belong to me? Gu Mengmeng's eyes were glazed over, losing some of their clarity. They looked like they were in a state of chaos and confusion. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, but that smile was not her usual unbridled and pretentious smile, but a little infatuated. Yes, belong to you. Li's voice was still calm, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, carrying the confidence of controlling everything. He was like a deity, looking down on all living things. Elvis secretly released his beast pressure, interrupting the intimate interaction between Leah and Gu Mengmeng. Leah glanced sideways, looking at Elvis with a puzzled gaze. Elvis took over the already half-conscious Gu Mengmeng from Li's arms, his brows furrowed tightly, looking at Leah with blame and disapproval. She is the messenger of the beast deity. So she must stay in Saint Nazaire. Leah did not seem to understand Elvis's implied meaning, but seemed to be using this attitude to remind Elvis, and this is the simplest and most effective method. Elvis's brows furrowed even more, because he also knew that Leah was right. As the tribe leader, he should consider for Saint Nazaire, and using the fox seductive fragrance to keep the messenger of the beast deity was also one of the plans he had approved. It was just that at that time, he did not know that the messenger of the beast deity whom he had never met would be the one who always surprised him, made him break his rules, and made him call her leader uncontrollably. When she wakes up, she will blame us. Elvis looked at the defenseless Gu Mengmeng who had fallen into a deep sleep in his arms, thinking about how her clear eyes would be filled with hatred and anger when she opened them again. He felt a sharp pain in his heart. To her, it's just two more outstanding males following her, she has nothing to lose. Moreover, if she gets angry because of the fox seductive fragrance, the only one she cannot forgive is me, not us. Leah seemed to be prepared for anything from the start, regardless of whether the outcome was good or bad. If that's the case, you can kill me in front of her to vent her anger. As long as the messenger of the beast deity can stay in Saint Nazaire and make Saint Nazaire stronger, it's worth sacrificing my life. Things have not reached that stage yet. Elvis interrupted Li's words. After going through life and death for so many years, he had long treated Leah as his family. Their blood and flesh were intertwined and they treated each other with sincerity. Although the thought of sharing Gu Mengmeng with Leah made him feel as though there was a fishbone stuck in his throat, Elvis treasured Leah like his own hands and feet. However, Leah smiled indifferently and glanced out of the cave thoughtfully. If she could mature a few years later, or even a few months later, I would not have to use the fox seductive fragrance to mate with her. But now, no matter how different you and I are in her heart, the difference between us and other males is not big. You know, if you want her to really stay, her first child has to be between you and me. Only then could Saint Nazir keep her. Otherwise, she can leave with her males anytime, and we can only choose to abandon Saint Nazir or become stray beasts. Elvis clenched his fists instinctively. There were some lines that could not be crossed. But if he had to sacrifice Gu Mengmeng for his ideals, his principles, and his bottom line, he could not bring himself to do so. Perhaps Leah was right. Even if they took advantage of the time when Gu Mengmeng was bewitched by the fox seductive fragrance to mate with her, Gu Mengmeng would not suffer any loss. Even if she did not like them because of the fox seductive fragrance, she could easily find other partners and leave him and Leah alone. She could even break off their partnership in the blink of an eye. Chapter 56. She will not belong to anyone else, no one can take her away. Elvis turned around and carried Gu Mengmeng to the grass in the cave, so that she could sleep more peacefully. Leah did not stop Elvis from leaving, he just looked at him quietly. When he walked out again after settling Gu Mengmeng down, Leah had already collected all his emotions. His eyes were so deep that they seemed to be able to see through everything. His voice was so calm that there was not a single ripple in it as he stated in a light tone, "You have already fallen in love with her." Elvis did not say a word, he just frowned and looked back at Leah. After a long while, he nodded his head slightly. Yes, he liked Gu Mengmeng, inexplicably, so much so that he could not extricate himself. He and Leah had planned for Saint Nazir for so many years, yet he had miscalculated his own restless heart. So this was how it felt to fall in love. Gu Mengmeng used her big, lively eyes to teach Elvis how to make his heart beat. So, he would never let go of this mischievous female no matter what. Luckily, Gu Mengmeng was coincidentally the messenger of the beast deity, so Elvis did not have to choose between the tribe and Gu Mengmeng. Leah did not seem to be surprised at all. Yes, that female was the messenger of the beast deity, she had countless attractive points on her. She was beautiful and intelligent, kind and gentle. Most importantly, she represented the beast deity and was the supreme authority in the beast world. It was an honor to be able to stand by her side. Which male could not be tempted? What about Barit? Do I need to warn him? No need. Elvis had his pride as the leader of the tribe, or rather, he had his pride as a male. Leah nodded his head, he had absolute confidence in Elvis's abilities, or else he would not have bet everything he had to support him, to help him reach the peak, to build Saint Nazir into the strongest tribe in the beast world, to recreate or even surpass the glory of Sauter in the past. I will not tell her about what happened today, but not again. But, don't do it again. Elvis warned Leah seriously. His tolerance towards Gu Mengmeng was zero. Leah raised his head and his gaze drifted to somewhere outside the cave. Without a clear focus, his gaze seemed a little hollow and even his voice sounded ethereal, as though it was near yet far away. It would be best if she could stay in Saint Nazir according to her own wishes. But what if she didn't think so? If one day, she falls in love with another male? She's mine, Elvis interrupted Leah. His meaning was clear. No matter how many partners Gu Mengmeng had in the future, his position as the first partner would not change. I'm glad you're so confident. Leah smiled and shrugged. After taking a deep breath, he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the cave, leaving Elvis with a proud and aloof back view and a faint sentence. I'm going to prepare for the night campfire party and send those males away at the same time. Elvis did not stop Leah from leaving and only sighed softly. Yes, he also hoped that he could continue to be this confident. Not long after Leah left, Gu Mengmeng slowly woke up. She did not feel much strangeness and only felt as if she was drunk. She remembered being in Lee's arms and how she wanted to pounce on Leah and Elvis with lust in her heart. But she did not know that she was like that because Lee's fox seductive fragrance had magnified the little greed in her heart. She only thought that she was too daring for lust and wanted to pounce on Leah, but how could she dare to think about Leader? Was she not afraid that Leader would swallow her whole if he was unhappy? Aside from the topic, today, she clenched her teeth and bought a new computer. Chapter 57. Come here. Elvis waved at Gu Mengmeng and said, I know you're awake. Gu Mengmeng, who wanted to continue pretending to be asleep, opened her eyes helplessly and flicked herself up from the grass. She smiled awkwardly but politely and said, Leader. Who will you choose tonight? Elvis's silhouette was hidden in the shadows and Gu Mengmeng could not see his face clearly even though they were very close. What? Gu Mengmeng's little heart froze because of Elvis's words. Who would she choose tonight? Was it the same as the Emperor flipping the cards? Gu Mengmeng's mind automatically replayed Li's ambiguous actions and seductive words and her little face could not help but burn up. Damn it, Leo looked like an otherworldly flower. Why was he so good at flirting? And he even led my leader astray. Give me back my cold and abstinent leader. Who is this introverted slut? I must have a fake leader. Gu Mengmeng was busy cursing in her heart and could not care about her facial expression. Hence, there was no longer any politeness on her little face and only awkwardness was left. Elvis reached out and pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms. He rested his chin on the top of her head so that she would not see through his expectations. He knew that Gu Mengmeng was a little afraid of him but he did not know why. He hoped that Gu Mengmeng would look at him with an obviously infatuated gaze like how she looked at Leah. But other than the first time they met, she had never looked at him like that again. Who will you choose as your first partner at tonight's night campfire party? Elvis tried his best to sound calm, but he himself did not know how much trepidation he was feeling when he asked this question. He was anticipating her answer but was afraid of hearing someone other than his name. Sorry, Gu Mengmeng had to disappoint Elvis's expectations. Because at that moment, it was as if a nuclear bomb had been thrown into her brain. What first partner? Leader, have you forgotten that I'm still a young female? An underage one. Gu Mengmeng instinctively crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at Elvis who was smiling bitterly with a guarded expression. She thought to herself, although this is the beast world, as a beast, there must be ethics and 3 principles, right? To lay hands on an underage female, that's enough to anger both man and God. Isn't that incomparably high and mighty beast deity of theirs going to come out and do something about it? You're an adult today. Elvis rubbed his chin against the top of Gu Mengmeng's head, his eyes filled with a gentle smile. You're in heat today. What? Gu Mengmeng could not hold it in any longer and blurted out, I am a pure and innocent young lady, why would I be in a relationship? Elvis tilted his head and looked at the furious Gu Mengmeng with a doting smile. The scent emitted from Gu Mengmeng's body did not seem to be covered by the medicine Leah had prepared. Instead, it had a vague feeling of wanting to say something, making it even more irresistible. This sweet and fragrant scent was like a pair of invisible hands that tickled Elvis's sensitive nerves. There was a voice that kept whispering beside his ears. You're female, she has matured. Gu Mengmeng had goosebumps from Elvis's laughter. She cleared her throat and lowered her head timidly, saying, Leader, I am not scolding you. I just want to express my shock. I'm really a young female, it's impossible for me to be in heat. You have to believe me, really. Chapter 58. What has it got to do with me that they went berserk? Gu Mengmeng pouted unhappily. She was not going to be the scapegoat. They became like this because the smell of you in heat is too alluring. Elvis smiled helplessly. If he could, he really wanted to hide Gu Mengmeng away so that no one could covet her. But, she was the messenger of the beast deity. I already said that I'm a young female, I won't go into heat. Before Gu Mengmeng finished her sentence, she suddenly thought of something. Her face was burning hot as if it was on fire. She swallowed her saliva and asked, Leader, do you guys call menstruation as heat? Menstruation? Elvis clearly did not understand what Gu Mengmeng was talking about. It's when a woman, oh no, it's when a female is in a bad mood every month and is especially irritable for a few days. Gu Mengmeng tried to use common sense to communicate with Elvis, but Elvis revealed an even more confused face. Females only have a bad mood for a few days every month? Why did he feel that females seemed to be in a bad mood every day and were irritable every day? Just like how I am now. I'm not injured but I bleed. Gu Mengmeng felt that her bottom line had been pushed to the 18th level of hell these 2 days. Why the hell did she have to explain to Elvis what menstruation was here? Elvis nodded at Gu Mengmeng's eager anticipation and said, "Yes, your current situation is called heat." Gu Mengmeng covered her face with both hands. 10,000 divine beasts were galloping in her heart. Damn it, a female that was not in heat was called a female, but one that was in heat was considered an adult. So, she had already been an adult for 5 years, but she still pretended to be an adult in the beast world and even attracted a bunch of demons and monsters to give her a coming-of-age ceremony. What kind of setting was this? What happened to being a queen after transmigrating? What happened to being either a royal consort or a beloved concubine? What happened to being a head servant with a cheat code? Why did she transmigrate to this barbaric era where men were in abundance and women were in decline? Damn it, all the women in the world were in a different color. Did all those years of watching, palace scheming, empresses in the palace, and every step of terror go to waste? Gu Mengmeng was wailing in her heart. Gu Mengmeng's world was collapsing. However, Elvis remained calm. Although he did not know why Gu Mengmeng had such a weird expression, she looked exceptionally cute when she rubbed her palm-sized face into the shape of a bun. So Elvis poked Gu Mengmeng's puffed-up little face in an untimely manner and asked playfully, "In the beast deity's world, you call estrus as menstruation?" Gu Mengmeng nodded instinctively, but after 2 nods, she realized the problem. The world of the beast god? Elvis knew she was not from this world? Gu Mengmeng suddenly raised her head and looked at Elvis. Her lips were pressed into a straight line and her blinking eyes were filled with shock and uneasiness. Those who are not of the same race must have a different heart. Their sins must be punished. Elvis would not be such a person, right? Bo. Leader. Gu Mengmeng could not help but stutter, her teeth chattering uncontrollably. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva and touched her neck, which was emitting a cold breeze. The image of Elvis transforming into his beast form and piercing her artery with his sharp fangs appeared in her mind. Elvis's mood dropped. He did not understand why the little person who was fooling around in his arms just now would suddenly look at him with such a guarded gaze. He preferred her carefree and unbridled look. Gu Mengmeng being so careful was not like her. His Gu Mengmeng, when she was beating someone up, she should be beating Nina up on the platform of the deity's punishment. When she was happy, she should be eating roasted meat with Sandy. When she was in trouble, she should be looking at him with wide eyes and saying, "Leader, please protect me." But only, she should not be so cautious. Aside from the topic, my first promotion is still so far away, do you guys know? I can already feel Gu Mengmeng's urge to strangle me. Chapter 59. Seeing Elvis frowning, Gu Mengmeng became even more nervous, and the moment she got nervous, she naturally bled. The barbaric sanitary pad prepared by Leah could not absorb Gu Mengmeng's ferocious amount of blood, so a bewitching red flowed down Gu Mengmeng's thigh. That warm current completely shattered Gu Mengmeng's self-esteem. What the f***ck? It was embarrassing enough for her period to bleed through her pants, but now it was dripping down in front of him. Gu Mengmeng felt that she had never been so embarrassed in her life. So she bent her knees and squatted on the ground, bawling her eyes out. Eat, anyway I can't beat you in a fight, nor can I outrun you. I can't do anything if you want to eat me. But can you be gentler when you eat me? I'm afraid of pain, sob. Elvis was dumbfounded by Gu Mengmeng's crying. He did not know why Gu Mengmeng was afraid of him, and now that he heard Gu Mengmeng say that he wanted to eat her, he did not know where to start. Was it not obvious enough how much he doted on her? Or, in the beast deity's world, the way males express their love for females is to eat them? Elvis was very glad that no one liked Gu Meng Meng in the beast deity's world. Unless I die, no one can hurt you. Don't be afraid. Elvis hugged Gu Meng Meng with heartache. He always knew that the messenger of the beast deity must have gone through many hardships to be able to serve by the beast deity's side. But he never thought that the other world would be so cruel to females. If Gu Meng Meng knew what Elvis was thinking, she would definitely explain it to him properly. Anyone who suddenly fell into a crowd of demons and was surrounded by a bunch of demons with green eyes would feel a sense of danger. Moreover, she was obviously guarding a demon king boss. But it was obvious that Gu Meng Meng did not know how to read minds, so she obviously did not know what Elvis was thinking. She just wiped her tears and looked at Elvis with misty eyes, asking, "You're not going to eat me?" "I'm not eating," Elvis answered firmly. "Not going to eat in the future?" Gu Meng Meng asked. "No." Elvis's heart skipped a beat and his gaze turned as gentle as water. Just because she said, "in the future," just now, Gu Meng Meng blinked her eyes and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She asked, "Are you really not going to treat me as reserve rations?" Elvis rubbed Gu Meng Meng's little head dotingly and promised solemnly, "What you're worried about will definitely not happen, don't let your imagination run wild." Gu Meng Meng sniffled and finally smiled through her tears. "You should have said so earlier if you don't want to eat me. You made me worry for a long time." Seeing Gu Meng Meng's relaxed look, Elvis also heaved a sigh of relief. After this ordeal, his initial uneasiness and anticipation were also disrupted. With the current atmosphere, he could no longer ask Gu Meng Meng who she would choose as her first partner tonight. Gu Meng Meng. A female's careful call came from the cave entrance. "Sandy?" Gu Meng Meng tilted her head and peeked her little head out from Elvis's side. She looked at Sandy who was standing at the cave entrance timidly and did not dare to enter. She grinned and said, "Are you here to play with me?" Sandy was still a little afraid of Elvis. Although Elvis had never done anything to her, and it could even be said that she and the other females could live peacefully in St. Nazaire because of Elvis's abilities and Lee's intelligence, but she could not explain why she was still afraid of him. So, Sandy waved at Gu Meng Meng and said, "Can you come out for a while? I have something for you." Gu Meng Meng's heart melted when she saw Sandy's actions that resembled a lucky cat. She nodded her head hurriedly and rushed out. But she had only taken 2 steps when she was lifted up by the waist. When her feet left the ground, her legs were still flailing in Sandy's direction. Gu Meng Meng's face turned into a steamed bun from anger. She turned to Elvis and protested, "Leader, you're lifting me again." Aside from the topic, to be honest, I have always been in a dilemma regarding the question of 1v1 or NPC. Logically speaking, the beast world has always taken the NPC route, and my original idea was also the same. But the great editor said that the current readers are pure and cannot accept the setting of NPC, so the outline that I submitted to the editor is for 1v1. The male lead is set to be Elvis, you can tell it's him just by looking at the title, but, if the little babies like to read NPC and think that NPC is acceptable, I feel that I can discuss with the editor again, because to be honest, Leah is a character that I like very much. He is very smart, has wisdom and is rational enough. However, a person who was too smart always thought that what he did was reasonable and controllable. When he realized that he was wrong, he was already deeply hurt. Chapter 60. I've said it before, I don't want to hurt them. Elvis's tone was fierce, as if he was answering Gu Meng Meng's complaints, but also persuading himself to resist the urge to go out and beat up those males who were drooling at Gu Meng Meng's entrance. Gu Meng Meng was instantly terrified. She waved at Sandy and said, "It's not convenient for me to go out, why don't you come in?" I don't dare to." Sandy lowered her head in embarrassment and peeked at Elvis from the corner of her eyes, looking extremely lovable. "Leader." Gu Meng Meng was such a smart person, she had already realized that Sandy seemed to be especially afraid of Elvis at the platform of the deity's punishment, so she used her own weight to swing herself into Elvis's arms. She looked at Elvis in a flattering manner and said, "Leader, I'm feeling terrible now. Can you let Sandy in to talk to me, please? Elvis was very satisfied with Gu Mengmeng throwing herself into his arms, but he was a clean freak. Other than Leah, only Gu Mengmeng could enter his cave freely. Nina was taught a lesson by Elvis because she used her female identity to barge into Elvis's cave time and time again, angering him. So everyone in Saint Nazaire knew that Elvis did not allow others to enter his cave, and the males in the beast world had a strong sense of territory, so it was normal for Elvis to be a little clean freak. As Sandy was a female and good friends with Gu Mengmeng, Elvis could tolerate her entering his territory, but reaching the entrance of the cave was already the limit. Elvis was not willing to let her in. But if he did not let Sandy in, Gu Mengmeng would have to go out. Looking at the group of drooling males at the entrance, Elvis nodded with a black face, allowing Sandy to enter. Thank you, leader. Gu Mengmeng cupped her fists and thanked him in a gangster-like manner, before jumping down from Elvis's body and pouncing on Sandy. Sandy had never been treated so passionately by a female before and was not used to it for a moment. She blushed shyly and allowed Gu Mengmeng to do whatever she wanted on her body. She rubbed left and right until she was satisfied. Then, like a girl confessing to her first love, she shyly took out a small parcel wrapped in leaves and passed it to Gu Mengmeng. She blushed and said, "This is for you. What is this?" Gu Mengmeng did not stand on ceremony and took it over while asking. It felt a little sticky to the touch and had a faint fragrance to the smell. Gu Mengmeng's eyebrows twitched and she was overjoyed. She put the sticky hand into her mouth. It was slightly sweet. This is yellow sauce. Although it can't compare to the roasted rabbit meat you gave me, it's already the most precious food I have. Sandy carefully observed Gu Mengmeng's expression. She was so afraid that Gu Mengmeng would despise the yellow sauce she had sent over. Although it was rare, it was not something that Gu Mengmeng had never seen before. Moreover, she only had so little. Sandy, thank you. Gu Mengmeng gave Sandy a bear hug. She rubbed her little face against Sandy's chubby little face in satisfaction to express the ecstasy in her heart. You're really my lucky star. With this, we can improve our meals. Sandy also smiled. She was very happy that Gu Mengmeng did not despise her gift and treated her so sincerely and passionately. In her memory, other than the mother beast, no other female had ever treated her so well before. Just because, she was just a half-orc. Gu Mengmeng's smile was as warm as the sun. It made people squint their eyes unknowingly and smile along with her. Aside from the topic, Leah and Gu Mengmeng really lived up to that saying, a person who knows how to love taught a person who doesn't know how to love how to love. But when the person who doesn't know how to love learns how to love, the person who knows how to love doesn't dare to love anymore. This is not the ending I want to see. Lee's past is already hurtful enough. He deserves a warm family and lover. This is the character setting that I made up for him. This is the compensation that I originally wanted to give him. But if the ending can only be a 1v1, then Leah is destined not to have a good ending. But no matter what, it still depends on everyone's opinion. If Leah can gain the favor of most of the partners, I can bring the public opinion to negotiate with the great editor to see if it can be written as a 1v2 or 1vn. Oh, right, I created a poll in the novel. Partners can choose the option that you support. Chapter 61. It's great to be able to help. Sandy's voice was so sweet, like a gentle breeze blowing through flower petals. Other than gentleness, there was also a hint of fragrance. You didn't just help me. You saved my life. Gu Mengmeng hugged the yellow gravy with both her hands exaggeratedly and sniffed it with all her might. With this honey, the next time we roast meat, it won't be so bland and tasteless. Sigh, although I still want oil, cumin, chili sauce, but it's good enough that we have honey now. We can slowly search for the other things, we will definitely find them one day. Honey? Sandy tilted her head. She liked Gu Mengmeng very much, but sometimes she could not understand what she was saying. Gu Mengmeng raised the leaves in her hands and teacher Gu explained to her, this yellow gravy, another name is honey, that's what we call it at my place. Oh. Sandy nodded her head, not really understanding. She knew that Gu Meng Meng was a female that Elvis had brought back from outside the tribe, so she interpreted the term, honey, as a dialect from Gu Meng Meng's original tribe and did not take it too seriously. Can you tell me, where did you find this? I'll get some later too. No way. No way. Before Gu Meng Meng could finish her sentence, Elvis and Sandy objected at the same time. Their attitudes were surprisingly united and firm, as if there was no room for negotiation. Gu Meng Meng was taken aback by their sudden tacit agreement. Their roars from both sides almost made her drop the honey in her hands. Why not? Gu Meng Meng was confused. Sandy was not a petty person. She would not object just because she was unwilling to share the honey with Gu Meng Meng, or else she would not have taken it out on her own today. Elvis was even more confused. He was a wolf that ate meat. Why would he compete with the honey? Sandy held on to Gu Meng Meng's shoulders with both her hands and said anxiously, if you want to eat it, ask your partners to help you gather it. I can let Bode lead the way and tell them where the nest of the yellow needle insects is. But you must not go find it yourself, understand? Why? Gu Meng Meng was still confused. Aya, just listen to me. Don't go by yourself, okay? Sandy was extremely anxious. Gu Meng Meng was the only female that treated her well. She did not want her to risk her life just for some food. Thinking that she might die near the nest of the yellow needle insects, Sandy's nose turned sour and tears started to fall down her cheeks. Sigh. Sigh, sigh. Sandy, don't cry, don't cry. Gu Meng Meng was also a gentle girl, but she could not bear to see tears, especially the tears of her good sisters. It was Gu Meng Meng's weakness. Gu Meng Meng stuffed the honey into Elvis's hands and carefully wiped Sandy's tear-stained face with her slender and fair hands. She said in a gentle tone, like a kindergarten teacher coaxing a child who refused to let go of his mother's thigh, "Good Sandy, stop crying. Look at you, your face is all tear-stained. It's just a little bit of honey. I won't go if you don't let me. At most, I won't eat it. Don't cry, okay? Really? Sandy's shoulders trembled as he asked. Chapter 62. Roasted meat is very delicious, Sandy said as she sobbed. Although she did not understand why Gu Meng Meng would talk about roasted meat when she mentioned yellow sauce, as a conscientious female who had personally tasted the deliciousness of roasted meat, Sandy felt that she should defend the roasted meat. How is that considered a delicacy? That's just to prolong my life and barely fill my stomach. Just wait, I'll make something better for you later. Gu Meng Meng patted Sandy's back lightly. Looking at Sandy, whose eyes lit up at the mention of food, Gu Meng Meng deeply understood that nothing could pacify a foodie better than food. Sandy's eyes were filled with anticipation as she looked at Gu Meng Meng. She swallowed her saliva but still shook her head, saying, I'm just a half-orc female, I'm not worthy for you to treat me so well. Gu Meng Meng tilted her head and blinked her big eyes, asking, so what if you're a half-orc female? Sandy touched her furry ears with a sense of inferiority. She wanted to cry but forced a smile, saying, it's very hard for a half-orc female to give birth to cubs. I've already been an adult for 2 years but I haven't given birth yet. That's why I'm always being bullied by Nina, even my males are mocked by Nina's males. Gu Meng Meng felt a little heartache as she looked at Sandy's desolate look. She recalled Nina's looks and compared it with Sandy. From her aesthetic point of view, Sandy was much prettier than Nina. But Nina was known as the first beauty of the tribe while Sandy could not even lift her head up after being bullied by her. At the start, Gu Meng Meng thought that the males in the beast world had a problem with their aesthetic standards and only considered Nina's cross-eyed, upturned nose, and big yellow teeth as beautiful. But from what she heard now, it seemed like the so-called first beauty of the tribe was just a difference in the degree of evolution. Nina did not have any animal characteristics on her body while Sandy had a pair of furry bear ears. Was it because this pair of ears could not evolve into a human form, so she was called a half-orc? So she was inferior? So she was bullied by that ugly Nina? What the heck? So what if Sandy had difficulty in giving birth? Her males did not even mind. why did Nina, an outsider, care so much? How many children did Nina give birth to? Gu Mengmeng raised her head and asked. There was a tinge of envy in Sandy's voice. The hand that was touching her ear unknowingly tightened, causing a bloody mark to appear on that furry little ear. But she seemed to not have noticed it as she answered Gu Mengmeng's question. Nina and I came of age in the same year. She gave birth to a nest of eaglets for Quinton last year, but for some unknown reason, they did not survive. A nest? Gu Mengmeng was shocked by this quantifier. Not surviving is the same as not surviving. Then why should she laugh at you? Gu Mengmeng did not mind pouring a bottle of Lao Gan Ma on Nina's wounds. When Nina bullied Sandy, she had never been merciful. Now, as long as it could make Sandy happy, Gu Mengmeng would do anything to poke Nina's heart. But Sandy felt that Gu Mengmeng's logic was not wrong. Although Nina was a complete female, she had been an adult for 2 years, yet she was still unable to give birth to a new cub for the tribe. What right did he have to laugh at himself? No buts. Gu Mengmeng nudged Sandy lightly with her shoulder, interrupting her little worries. Then, she covered her mouth with her hand and whispered into Sandy's ear, Sandy, do you still have the pad you use when you are in heat? Lend me one, I can't take it anymore. Sandy then noticed the meandering blood stains on Gu Mengmeng's thighs. She hurriedly nodded her head and replied like a machine gun, yes, 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 yes. I'll ask Bo to help you get it. Sigh. Gu Mengmeng wanted to stop Sandy. Damn, asking a male to help her get a pad was very embarrassing. But Sandy had already dashed out of Elvis's cave like a gust of wind. She ran towards Bode, who was waiting for her at the border of Elvis's territory. While running, she shouted, Bode, hurry and help me get some of the pad I use for heat. Gu Mengmeng is in heat too much, she needs that pad, bring more of it. Aside from the topic, yesterday, she sneakily made it to the top of the list without any precaution or apprehension. Alright, since she was in the recommendation process, 1P would not be too far away. Rubbing her hands nervously, P.S. Chapter 63. Gu Mengmeng slapped her own forehead. What did it mean to have no love in life? What did it mean to have the best bad friend? Gu Mengmeng looked at Sandy's anxious and sincere look and deeply understood the true meaning of these 2 words. However, before Gu Mengmeng could criticize Sandy, she felt a warmth on her back and she fell into Elvis's arms. Leader? Gu Mengmeng did not understand what was wrong with Elvis suddenly. Hugging and killing her from behind? Didn't he promise not to eat her? But why did Gu Mengmeng feel that Elvis had already opened his mouth and was about to bite her neck? You promised not to eat me, sob sob sob. Gu Mengmeng's heart trembled violently. Leah prepared a few cushions for Estrus, they are placed in the cave. Elvis's heart ached for Gu Mengmeng. She had been living in fear every day in the beast deity world, so she was so cautious and always felt that someone wanted to eat her. He also felt defeated, he had promised her so seriously that he would protect her, but she was still so afraid. That frightened bunny-like appearance made people feel pity and heartache. Huh? Gu Mengmeng snorted bitterly. If that was the case, why did she borrow sanitary pads from Sandy? If you like the yellow sauce, I will go get it for you, don't worry. Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes in confusion. Why did she feel that leader had become so weird ever since he returned from the platform of the deity's punishment? Was it because of Leah? Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt that he seemed to have discovered something incredible. Leader did not allow others to enter his cave, even precious females like Sandy and Nina did not dare to enter easily, but Leah could walk in openly as if he was returning to his own home, and could even casually leave sanitary pads in Elvis's cave, and Leader was not angry at all? No wonder Leader asked her who she was going to choose as her first partner tonight, so it was because of Lee's weird ambiguous behavior just now? Damn, Leader treated her as his love rival? The more Gu Mengmeng thought about it, the more she felt that it was the case. Then, she nodded her head seriously and patted Elvis's arm earnestly, saying, Leader, I understand, don't worry. You understand? Elvis's heart was beating wildly and he looked at Gu Mengmeng in surprise. Elvis flipped Gu Mengmeng over in his arms and stared straight into her watery eyes. His gaze was as deep as a thick ink that could not be melted. Even he himself could not clearly express the turbulence hidden in his eyes. But she said that she understood. Did this mean that she already knew his feelings for her? Gu Mengmeng tiptoed and tried her best to reach his shoulders. Unfortunately, her height was a handicap and she could only reach his chest even after using all her strength. Thus, she patted on his muscular chest like a hooligan, thinking to herself that since they were all sisters, there was no need to be so formal. Boss, no matter what others say, I'm always on your side. I will never allow anyone to destroy your happiness. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head solemnly. She frowned slightly and her gaze was filled with a rare determination. The pitiful Elvis still did not know that in Gu Mengmeng's heart, he and Leah had already been forcefully paired together. He still thought that Gu Mengmeng's words were an acknowledgement and promise to his feelings. She said that she would stand by his side and protect his happiness. Didn't that mean that she wanted to be his partner? Aside from the topic, today's update might have been slightly delayed because the writing system crashed, causing the chapters to be messed up. I'm currently correcting it manually. Chapter 64. With Gu Mengmeng's promise, Elvis felt much more at ease. He also started to look forward to tonight's campfire party. Even if it was him, he still had a little bit of vanity. He hoped to gain Gu Mengmeng's approval in front of everyone in the tribe and become her first partner. Thinking that he would have an official status tonight, it was the first time in Elvis's life that he wished for the sun to set. Gu Mengmeng, come quickly, this is for you. Sandy was waving the barbaric version of a sanitary pad in her hands as she ran towards Gu Mengmeng breathlessly. She stuffed the sanitary pad into her hands and said, quickly change into it. The sky is going to turn dark soon. Bode said that the campfire party is almost ready. Gu Mengmeng's smile was a little complicated. If Sandy's expression was not so sincere, she would have thought that Sandy was purposely pranking her. 10 pairs of eyes outside the cave were glaring at her with green light. Once they heard that she was going to change the sanitary pad, the green light became even brighter. Gu Mengmeng was speechless. It was just her period. Was there a need to attract so much attention? Elvis took 2 steps forward and stopped in front of Sandy. He said expressionlessly, bring your partner to the campfire and reserve a spot. Gu Mengmeng will follow me later. Oh, all right. Sandy was still afraid of Elvis. She did not dare to stay any longer after he gave the order to chase her away. She took a small step back timidly and stretched her neck to look at Gu Mengmeng. Then I will wait for you at the campfire. Come over quickly. All right. See you in a while. Gu Mengmeng was always gentle towards Sandy. Sandy's departure caused a commotion among the males. She had too much of Gu Mengmeng's scent on her, causing the single males to be so excited that they could not control themselves. Luckily, Bode and the rest had been protecting Sandy all this while and did not let this bunch of fellows hurt her. The moment Sandy left, Elvis tore a thick piece of beast skin from the side and punched it twice, each punch creating a dent on the edge of the cave entrance. He forcefully embedded the beast skin into the wall and turned it into a simple curtain, completely blocking off the drooling gazes of the males outside the cave. Sandy's eyes were filled with salivation. But at the same time, Gu Mengmeng was completely blinded. Leader. I can't see. Gu Mengmeng stretched both her arms forward, fumbling around in the darkness. I'm here. Elvis frowned and strode towards Gu Mengmeng. He held onto her little hand that was groping around in the dark and brought her into his arms. What happened to your eyes? Nothing happened to my eyes. Gu Mengmeng held onto Elvis's arm tightly and refused to let go. She curled up in Elvis's arms like a little kitten, seeking a sense of security. Elvis thought, everyone has their own past that they don't want to talk about. Her eye injury must have caused her a lot of pain in her heart, that's why she didn't want to talk about it. Elvis frowned slightly. he suddenly felt that her smile was very piercing to his eyes. She was obviously suffering physically and mentally, but she still had to smile stubbornly. She hid her own pain and licked it away alone. Without saying a word, Elvis scooped Gu Mengmeng into his arms and placed her on his thighs. Then, he neatly lifted up her skirt and pulled down her underwear. He helped Gu Mengmeng change into the sanitary pad that Sandy had just sent over. Then, he tidied up her clothes and hugged her in his arms again, placing her on his chest. Aside from the topic, oh right, babies. I created the reader group, but I don't know how to manage it. Are there any babies who know how to manage the group and have time? You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.